You good to go? Yeah. All right. Cool. Thank you all for stopping by. My name's Dave. I work for CheckSec, and we develop a product called Canopy. Canopy is a security assessment management support tool. So just a quick show of hands. Does anyone work in security assessments, penetration testing? Yeah. Does anyone manage penetration testing teams? Does anyone consume penetration testing services? So they get reports from lots of different companies and have to cut and paste all of that into Excel? No, none of those. Okay. My background is from pen testing. I worked in pen testing for about 15 years, and there are problems in the delivery of assessments. So pen testers are really, really good about doing their normal sort of day job of finding vulnerabilities, but when it comes down to service delivery, they're often problems. So I think the problem that kickstarted all of this for me was death by reporting. So pen testers really, really love writing reports, right? That's the favorite activity during an assessment is writing reports. And that really sparked the interest in developing a system, not just to help with the delivery of report writing itself, but also with speeding up other efficiencies during the assessment delivery process. So there are a number of different problems that we can identify during the assessment delivery process. Delays obviously come about in relation to overruns with reports and so on, but also the information is quite disconnected. So at the start of an engagement, of course, you go through the scoping exercise and so on. That creates one set of information. There's information to be shared during an engagement. There are emails sent back and forward. So all of this information is either sent via email, on ticketing systems, on file shares, etc. And there's no one tool that brings all of this together. The inconsistencies in relation to report delivery is a problem, not just for the pen test team that has increases in relation to quality assurance in their reports, but also for the consumers of that information. If you're working on a pen test or multiple pen tests with a client organization and they receive 15 different descriptions of SQL injection, their development teams are not going to be very happy with that. They'll be confused. They won't know what the sort of consistent standard approach should be to addressing those issues. And those consumers are maybe not only consuming pen test reports from you, but they could be consuming pen test reports from another 10 organizations. So being consistent is good for the pen test team because they can have quality deliverables, but it's also good for the people who are consuming those services because it's consistent, repeated, and so on. And all of this is highly inefficient. So documentation management via email was never a good idea anyway. But when we look across all of the sort of the workflow of delivering an assessment, there are many inefficiencies, and Canopy attempts to address that. So Canopy is proposing as a security assessment management system, just as like you would have a CRM for your sales team or an ERP for resource management. Canopy pretends to be the support tool for assessment delivery. So by having a centralized system, we can collaborate very easily on our assessment delivery process. Everyone knows where to go. They know where to find the information that they need to deliver assessment. This is really good. It's just one sort of central resource for information sharing. We have a vulnerability knowledge base, which is a store for reusable content. So instead of rewriting SQL injection multiple times, you write it once, you maintain that good write-up, and that can be used then for all of your reports. There's a nice trick in relation to having this vulnerability knowledge base, and that allows you to map the vulnerability knowledge base to specific tools. So if you're augmenting your manual testing or if you're doing specifically automated testing, those write-ups that you maintain as a service organization can be used to override the write-ups for the particular tool data. So we all know that some tools are better than others, but some tool descriptions are not very good at all. And by standardizing and having reusable content and by automating all of that content, you can begin to find real efficiencies in the generation and writing of reports. In relation to report writing itself, we use a Word templating framework. You create a Word template, upload it to the system, and then all of your consultants are then able to use that for generating reports by clicking a button. This is a sort of an admin overhead that has to be done, but the reporting process is incredibly flexible, as complex or as simple as you want it to be. Canopy also does team scheduling, so a lot of small companies that we deal with, they probably do their scheduling based on shared calendars or spreadsheets. Larger organizations may have invested, lots of money in ERP solutions, and we're not trying to compete with that end. We're really just trying to provide an integrated solution that's optional to use for doing schedule for engagements on small teams. In relation to supported tools, so obviously we import data from many different tools. This is a snapshot of the tools we currently support. And at the moment, we're actually rewriting the entire import framework. So this will become a lot easier for us to add new tools and for also our users to add their own tools, so for in-house customizations and so on. And all of this automation and reusable content, etc. I mean, that just leads to savings on all of your engagements, right? So we had one quote, and I don't know much to read into this, but it's a good soundbite. And they said that engagements that were previously taking them, these are web application assessments, a web application assessment team in a pretty large organization. Those engagements were taking them on average 2 to 3 days. And they reckon now with all of the work they've put into automating Canopy, it's taking them 2 to 3 hours to generate a report. So that's a pretty exceptional saving. I don't think all consultancies or internal test teams have those types of savings. And there's the big question around reporting tools in many organizations, especially in bespoke or boutique consultancies, is whether or not to develop this in-house or to buy a solution. So Canopy, of course, is supported. It's maintained. I mean, it's a commercial product. Oops. It's a commercial product. We're supporting this. We're very responsive to our users. We're really, we put a lot of pride into developing this product. So we're there on hand to help customers via the onboarding process and getting everything set up to use Canopy, or for adaptations, developments, and so on during the life cycle of Canopy's use. So we're going to do a demo. Hopefully this doesn't go to crap. Seconds. Okay, so this is Canopy. This is I'm logged in as an admin at the moment, so I get to see everything on the system. It's a very simple dashboard that shows me the activities, the assessments that I'm assigned to, some stats information, etc. I won't go through all of the functionality because I'm limited on time, so we'll just go through a typical workflow. If you're logged in as a consultant, you're going to go to your assessment. We'll go to an assessment that has data in it first. So in the assessment, we have information sharing, so we can have like scope information that's provided as like descriptive content, or we could have like an upload folder where we could upload content to that. If there's any information that needs to be shared, like API documentation for assessments and stuff like that. And we have a findings view, which shows us all of the findings in our assessment, and we have an asset view, which shows us the reverse of that, so what findings relate to our specific assets. So if we go into an asset, we can see all of the findings that relate to it. Going into a finding, so if we wanted to add new findings to the system, we can either add from our vulnerability knowledge base, so we've got access to our vulnerability knowledge base here, or we can create new findings, and so on. In a finding, so I'm just going to do a very quick look at all of this stuff. Inside a finding, this is where we store all of our content relating to a finding. So we have optional categorizations of issues. This is configurable within the system. Risk rating is a default risk rating type that's inside of Canopy, but we do have support for custom rating types as well. We also support CVSS2, so there's a lot of flexibility there for for adapting to customer requirements and so on. Advanced rating systems like CVSS2 is a standard advanced rating. Our examples, I'll show that based on the tool import now, it'll make a bit more sense. But we have the concept of a single finding, but a finding can have multiple instances, right? So we might have a finding which is cross-site scripting, but in our application we might have 50 instances of cross-site scripting. References to taxonomies is just some classification information and so on, etc. So I'll go into an assessment that has no data in it. So if we start off from like 0 findings, how do we go from findings? So we already mentioned that we can add VKB entries from our vulnerability store. We can create findings from a manual process. We can also drop tool results in here. So we'll take Nessus, we'll drop that in. We'll take Burp, we'll drop that in too. So it's going to do an import in the back end. Let's pick up the tool type. Anyway, so you can sort of see that this will be adding findings to our finding store. It's probably finished now. Okay. So we can see the source of our findings. So some of these findings have come from Burp. Some of them have come from the VKB. So if we just jump into the VKB for a moment. So we can look at SQL injection here. So this is our default SQL injection write-up that we use as a template for creating an instance of a finding and assessment. We can map tool results to the VKB entry. So we can take like SQL injection from Burp and so on and map that. And anytime we import from Burp or Qualys or Nessus or whatever tool is being mapped to the VKB entry, we'll get a finding that's written up based on our content, not based on the tool's content, right? So this gives us a way of going to higher quality write-ups that we're maintaining ourselves. So we've done an import, and we've got lots of raw data that we want to work with, but we of course don't want to give our customers a 500-page report. We want to try and compress this down into a useful report for our customers. So we just do a filter here for like keywords to pick up common types. So we can select all of these Flash player issues. The problem here is that Flash is vulnerable, not that we have like these individual findings. Okay, so we're going to group those items together. We can create a new finding, or we can group it to something else. So we'll create a new one in this instance. Okay, we'll call this Flash cumulative issue. We can set some flags here. So we'll call this critical. We can set PCI fail, and we could do it right up here, or we can take the content from the items that we're grouping into a group finding and start from that. So we can merge all of our content in there, etc. And the rest of the stuff is optional. We can create that, and then instead of having 7 or 8 Flash findings, we have one finding. So that's going to be the finding that we report to our users. If we've made a mistake in the grouping process, it's very easy. We can just go into our associated findings and we can say, well, this is not really a vulnerability in relation to Flash. This is something entirely different, and we can get rid of those. We can remove them from the group, etc. So by following this process, we can reduce our report to something which is useful and consumable by the client. There may be some types of findings that we don't want to report on, so we can like filter on all of our info findings, for example. We can take all of those, and we can set those to ignore. If there were false positives, we could mark things as false positives as well. And we can export our findings list to CSV if we wanted to, etc. But when we've done all of this, we're ready to create a report. So let's go into a report. We can create a new report. Okay, 44con demo God's kindness. Okay, we can select our different report templates. So kind of is a concept of having a report template structure. You can have one or many. Report structure can be mapped to a report document in many different ways. So you might have like an executive summary report or a full report, etc. For the PCI ASV testing, it's very typical for some companies to merge all of the content into one document, or to separate it into the 3 distinct section headers under the PCI guidelines. So we'll do a checksec standard reports here. We'll select checksec, this is the 44 project we were working on. And so we can fill in some of this information. These structures here on our left-hand side is a template structure that we've put in place under template documents. If anyone's interested in a more sort of detailed demo, we can arrange it afterwards. But we would like fill in some, like there's some default content that comes with this. Then you can tailor it to the specific reports. And when we download, we select our Word template. We can set it as docx. We also do XML output, and we can do docx to PDF conversion on the back end, but that's not enabled at the moment. We can also set finding ordering, so based on our default risk rating in Canopy, CVSS base 2 or custom report ratings. We'll leave it as default for the moment. Finding grouping is something which we can discuss in another moment. Generated reports. So obviously, depending on the size of the content that's going to be input to the report, this will take from a few seconds to a few minutes or a few hours if it's a 4,000-page report, as one of our customers wanted to generate a few weeks ago. So our document has been generated. We click on that. And we've got a generated report from it. So just before we go into generate a report, I'll show you how this looks from a mapping perspective. So we have a Microsoft Word tool. There's an XML structure that Canopy exports, which allows you to drag and drop data points into your Word templates. So someone who designs the reports does this. When they're finished, they upload it to the system, and then the consultants can use it. And then those data points get turned into something like this. You see some different data points here. There's some content, like a repeatable table here, which shows all of our vulnerabilities, blah, blah, blah. And content. And that's a generated report. So the demo at least didn't fail. So that's pretty much it. Security assessments in a box, management in a box. We're adding new functionality over the next few months. We'll have a proposal generation system that's going to be added pretty soon. So not only generating reports, but you'll be able to generate proposals and statement of work. We're adding a portal add-on to this, so users can come in and self-service themselves. They can request scopes for engagements and so on. And we're working on an offline client as well. So quite a lot of developments over the next few months. But that's Canopy. And let's put contact information. So, any questions?